Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the GreenWave podcast by Synergy International. I'm your host, SYNI. This week, we're lightening up the pod by taking our first look at sustainable development strategies in the global skiing resort industry, focusing on the admirable yet very different net zero efforts at two of America's finest ski mountains, Jackson Hole in Wyoming and Alta in Utah. Both known for their extraordinary ski heritage combined with forward thinking on the environment. We'll also do our enhanced takes from the latest edition of the GreenWave Gazette. The snow is fresh and falling in the west of the US, so let's dig our shovel into the world of skiing, where the continued existence of the sport is perceived to hang in the balance with climate change and global warming. Many of our growing cohort of listeners may be familiar with Jackson Hole due to their famous annual Global Central Banking Conference, first convened by the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank in 1978. It's grown into the world's most important symposium of global central bankers, easily understood as a Davos-type event, where the guest list is restricted to the global elite that set monetary policy and banking regulation. The ski story started with the establishment of the Jackson Hole Ski Corporation in 1963, and the rest is the stuff of legend, with a majestic mountain highlighted by the infamous Courbet's Couloir, a vertical chute known as one of the most exhilarating ski experiences anywhere to be found. As for the greening of Jackson Hole, the evolution has two main drivers. There is a powerful incentive to be an environmental leader by example, given the world's attention on the mountain each year as the backdrop to the KC Fed conference. Another powerful source of motivation for Jackson Hole, along with all ski areas, comes from their clients, aka skiers, who as a group are among the most environmentally conscious consumers of any target demographic. And the ski community typically combines this go green ethic with a stay green conservationist belief, rooted in wildlife preservation. Thus, among skiers, we often find that rare species of Homo sustenere, Latin for sustainable man, who tends to move beyond the left-right politicization that characterizes so much of the current debate around net zero policies. Many skiers can see the need to champion climate change through the lens of natural preservation, a healthy mix of complementary causes seen otherwise as either liberal or conservative in isolation. Our GreenWave listeners already know that Synergy International is a big advocate of expunging the political turf wars from the future of net zero development. It's too important for everyone to leave anyone out of a balanced equation. So, what has Jackson Hole done in its efforts to champion sustainable development? The first pivotal move can be traced back to the early 2000s, when Jackson Hole Mountain Resort committed to running on 100% sustainable energy. This transition involves purchasing power agreements, known as PPAs, with regional wind farms, ensuring that lift operations, base facilities, and resort infrastructure are fueled by wind-generated electricity. Meanwhile, JHMR has also embraced biodiesel blends for its snow grooming fleet, converting a traditionally emissions-heavy aspect of resort life into a cleaner operation. One look at JHMR's energy transition shows that these changes didn't happen overnight. They required substantial retrofits, such as upgrading lift motors and improving snowmaking efficiency to handle the shift toward purely renewable sources. Skeptics have pointed out that expansions in guest services could overshadow the resort's gains in renewable energy, but JHMR's overall strategy still places it at the very top of US ski areas committed to 100% use of sustainable energy for its on-mountain operations. It just happens to be extremely popular and attracts lots of keen skiers. Beyond technology, Jackson Hole has formed alliances with local conservation groups to protect natural habitats and preserve vital wildlife corridors. This isn't just a nod to sustainability for its own sake. It's central to the Jackson Hole brand, drawing skiers who crave both powder and a connection to the wild. The Sustainable Destination Management Plan, for instance, outlines goals to curb waste, reduce carbon emissions, and encourage thoughtful tourism growth. Central to SDMP is the pledge to maintain JHMR's 100% sustainable energy supply and expand the use of biodiesel to further reduce its carbon footprint. On the cultural front, the resort hosts events like the Natural Selection Tour, a competition that celebrates freestyle skill in untamed terrain, spotlighting the unique balance between adrenaline-fueled adventure and environmental care. When international athletes and fans converge on Jackson Hole, they experience a place that's powered by wind energy, forward-thinking about emissions, and committed to biodiesel use in daily operations. While challenges remain, like handling a growing community of keen skiers during peak seasons, Jackson Hole's approach of embracing PPAs, upgrading infrastructure, protecting ecosystems, and leading the way with renewable fuels shows what's achievable when a top-tier ski destination decides to go all in on sustainable energy. By weaving cutting-edge technology with community-driven efforts, JHMR stands as a living model for the global ski industry's path to a greener future. So, what has Alta done in its efforts to champion sustainable development? The story stretches back well over a century, when Little Cottonwood Canyon, Utah was a bustling silver mining site. As the ore ran dry, local entrepreneurs re-envisioned the rugged terrain, leading to the founding of Alta Ski Area back in 1938. Over the decades, Alta's transition into one of America's most celebrated old-school ski destinations has been marked by its authentic character and legendary snowfall. Nowhere is this more evident than Baldy Chutes, perched at a majestic 3,374 meters. A rite of passage for adventure skiers, Baldy demands hours of climbing on the way up and a few unforgettable minutes of very steep, narrow, powdery turns on the way down, an experience high on any skier's bucket list. Warning, just don't fall. Today, Alta stands at the forefront of environmental stewardship, backed by a comprehensive strategy to offset 100% of its energy usage. According to its 2023 sustainability report, Alta invests in high-quality carbon offset programs, carefully cultivated with renewable energy credits through Rocky Mountain Power's Blue Sky program. These RECs represent renewable energy that has been delivered to the power grid and balance out emissions from lifts, snowmaking, and resort operations. This commitment extends to on-the-ground changes, such as upgrading heating systems, installing energy-efficient lighting, and encouraging carpooling or shuttle use among visitors. While some might question whether offsets alone can fully mitigate a resort's impact, and we tend to share much of that skepticism, Alta's broader shift toward cleaner energy sources underscores its dedication to minimizing its carbon footprint. However, sustainability at Alta isn't limited to balancing out emissions. The resort has fostered a vibrant community ethos that centers on preserving the local ecosystem. Over the years, volunteers and staff have planted native vegetation, restored stream habitats, and coordinated educational outreach through non-profit partnerships. These initiatives cultivate a sense of shared responsibility for the canyon's delicate environment, which is also extremely beautiful, ensuring that future generations can enjoy the same unspoiled landscapes and remarkable powder conditions that put Alta as one of the world's must-ski destinations on the map. In combining a storied skiing heritage with forward-thinking carbon strategies and active community engagement, Alta embodies a vision that goes beyond the slopes. It's a place where history, adrenaline, and conservation converge, proving that old-school charm can coexist with modern sustainable practice. As you can probably gather, certain members of the Synergy International team are keen skiers and love to share the stoke from their adventures. And soon, we'll explore the net zero efforts at key European ski resorts in a following podcast. Now let's turn to highlights from our 9th edition of the GreenWave Gazette launched on Friday. First, the United Nations published its long-awaited 15th edition of the Climate Report, pooling insights from top climate scientists around the globe. This new assessment lays out future trends in greenhouse gas emissions, highlights the critical urgency of global warming, and proposes potential pathways for mitigation and adaptation. According to the report's authors, we're approaching key tipping points faster than previously estimated, underscoring the need for swift, collaborative action. And this is 100% the growing scientific consensus. These conclusions build on earlier warnings and add a deeper layer of data analysis, showing that greenhouse gas emissions have yet to plateau in the way scientists had hoped. The good news is that researchers have proposed practical strategies for governments and the private sector, including tighter emissions regulations, broader adoption of low-carbon energy technologies, and enhanced climate financing for developing regions. But with the political rise of climate skeptics headed into this year, we're not particularly confident the UN's warning will be heeded in any more serious way than many of the other existing cautionary opinions from equally authoritative sources. Meanwhile, the US Department of State has reaffirmed America's commitment to building a net zero emission, resilient future. In a statement titled US Climate Commitments, officials emphasized the creation of green jobs, the transition to cleaner energy, and the responsibility to secure a healthy planet for coming generations. This move mirrors the outgoing Biden administration's efforts to ramp up renewable energy infrastructure and push through climate-friendly legislation before its final gasp, while also delivering a parting message to the global community that the US aimed to lead by example under the previous leadership. We're not big fans of all the dying hour climate efforts from the outgoing administration. No doubt they will all be quickly flipped with executive orders by the Donald, aka soon-to-be President again Trump, as soon as his pen cools down from solving the world's polycrisis on his first few days in office. The net result will be an expansion of the political divide for net zero causes with the incoming US power brokers. In the world of academia, Columbia University on the Upper West Side of Manhattan unveiled updates to its 10-year sustainability plan, Plan 2030, which sets the institution on a course to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Their plan hinges on two main pathways: building net zero, which deals with reducing energy use and emissions in physical infrastructure, and living net zero, focused on promoting sustainable daily behaviours among faculty, staff, and students. By combining these two approaches, Columbia hopes to transform both the campus environment and the culture of its community. So, big cheers to Columbia for walking the walk and providing leadership and a tip of the hat to its Centre for Sustainable Development. Director, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, a long-standing climate champion who has been man in the news recently for very different reasons. Sachs also serves as president for the UN's Sustainable Development Solutions Network and a social development goal advocate. Anyone out there not familiar with Professor Sachs' work, we suggest you start by checking out www.csd.columbia.edu. We also have big news from the Race to Zero campaign under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change umbrella. Participation in this global movement has soared past 14,000 entities, ranging from corporate giants to local governments and financial institutions. So much for the retreat of sustainable causes. The campaign's mission, to halve global emissions by 2030, reflects the growing importance of non-state actors eager to tackle climate challenges. The rising tide in membership signals a counter-narrative to all the centre-right climate bashing and megabank and fund management defections from voluntary climate entities, as more grassroots global organisations commit to science-backed targets and transparent reporting. Finally, the MSCI Sustainability Institute released its latest Net Zero Tracker report, assessing the progress of publicly listed companies worldwide. This periodic review provides super unique data on how corporate players are setting net zero targets, reducing emissions, and minimizing climate-related risks. By spotlighting both top performers and laggards, the tracker targets environmental, social, and governance-based investors, guiding stakeholders to make informed decisions, and encourages companies to elevate their commitments. More on the trials and tribulations of the ESG investment world in future gazettes and pods. There is plenty to discuss and too little time to go there today. Well, that's a wrap on our 4th GreenWave podcast episode. We hope you enjoyed listening. We're happy to tell our listeners that the pod can now be found on all of the major podcast platforms, or in podcast speak, wherever you listen to your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Podchaser, Boomplay, and Player FM. And if you missed any of our GreenWave Gazette editions, don't worry. You can catch us on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, Instagram, or directly on our website, synergy-international.net. We'll continue to reflect on the major themes that guide sustainable finance and global policy. Until next time, keep riding the green wave of sustainability.